BRB UK. Worse teeth, better accents.
Hello and welcome to episode 550 of BRB UK, a video games podcast where we like to talk about video games, usually after we do a bunch of preemptive ramble. My name is Coleman, and hi! We have no Dan this week, unfortunately, topical reason. Haven't thought of one, so we'll just say...
He's stolen Boris Johnson's phone.
He's stolen Boris Johnson's phone.
Or he's trying to hack into it for the government.
Yeah. And now men in suits have taken him away because of reasons. Hey, Tim's here.
Hello.
There we go. You all right, buddy?
Yeah, all good. How is Mr. Coleman?
Mr. Coleman has had one heck of a week, but that's okay, because I hear you've had a week, because I spotted on Twitter and on Threads that, by the way, we're on Threads now.
We're on Threads.
Big Red Barrel on Threads. Damn it, Coleman on Threads. Is it BRB on Tim on Threads?
It's basically underscore Tim on Threads. See, that's born of the podcast as well. Podcast listeners helped name me on Threads.
You're meant to have perfect parody of everything. You're meant to have perfectly, like, everything all the same.
I know, but someone had already stolen my email by the time I got there. So, what can I do?
All right. Yes, so you can find us on Threads. But I did see on Threads and on Twitter that you've been at Develop Brighton.
Yes.
And if I know something about you, Tim.
Yes.
It's that you like to talk about the events you've gone to in great detail.
I mean, generally, yeah.
Strap yourself in, folks. And just a reminder, we do have chapters available in the show notes if you ever need to skip anything. Right, continue.
All right, anyone doesn't know, Develop Brighton is more of a kind of industry-focused event where a lot of game devs go to a lot of talks, and there's a lot of stuff there for kind of getting into games, like universities and educators and other people there that are kind of attending there, and it's a good event for people looking to get into the game industry. You can meet some people from studios. There were a few game developers there that I'm going to bring into the show at some point, but the little Hitman duck I managed to steal on the day. But yeah, IO Interactive were there, and they had a thing for Project 007 and a kind of nod to Hitman World of Assassination, but they weren't really showing anything off. They were mainly there for networking with, industry people and speaking to prospective employees, and it's more of a industry focused event. Throughout the day, there are a lot of talks given by various people, luminaries of the industry in some cases, and some just other specialist subjects that are interested in. Unfortunately, I didn't make it for the one I got up at the crack of dawn yesterday to try and make it in time to get there, because Guerrilla were giving the opening presentation of the day. I did make it to one later in the day. I'll come back to that near the end. But just to get stuck into some of the games that I managed to see there, because there is a small group of indie games. They are being shown off to journalists, and that's the under the pretense, basically, I would possibly say, that I was kind of there. We're more enthusiast press, as I kind of told most people on the day. But yeah, there's a selection of games there that are mainly there to show off slightly to the press, but then also to other game developers, because there's a lot of game developers at the conference. And so they had a selection of indie games that were on the floor, and that's what I'll mainly concentrate on. There were a couple of other things here and there, but I will concentrate on the indie games that I got to see and play. I will save you, Coleman, from everything that I got to play that day, because there's a couple of VR games which I will save for VRB so that we don't double up on those. VRB. See, there's another plug.
Subscribe today, VRB. YouTube and on all podcast places where they're available.
So yeah, I'll save you a little bit and we can go on to that. And there's some games here I think you're really going to like as well. So I'll start off with the one that I think you're going to possibly gravitate towards, that you'll quite like. GladiEaters, basically. GladiEaters. And I like a bad pun, but a good game with a bad pun, then yeah, you've probably got my attention. And I would point out most of these games are that I'm about to talk about are all played on PC. I think, all played on PC and one was on gamepad, but the rest of them are on WASD. And straight up front, we all know that I'm not the PC gamer of the bunch, and I am not good at WASD. So some game designers had to suffer through me, kind of limping through their games, but I did it so you can get some coverage for the show. GladiEaters is one that doesn't really rely on strict WASD controls quite so much. But yeah, there's a couple of like mini games based on cracking an egg open and stuff like that. But the two halves of the game that kind of make up the major part of the game, I think you're going to like, Coleman. Legally, definitely not Pokemon. And legally, definitely not Cooking Mama. So you're doing some mini games at the beginning to cook and otherwise prepare your ingredients. That grants you different powers to your Pokemon type creatures, which are different bits of food. So the example shown that I played, you basically got eggs. You got to be able to crack those open, just peel the eggs, kind of thing, and stuff like that. So you can boil them, and then I think you can peel the eggs, or you can fry them, and then there's a little frying mini game where you've got to keep it over a hot spot and kind of keep it in position. And so there's various different mini games that lead into you getting various different levels of creatures, which you can then battle with in a Pokemon style, like turn-based type thing. But it was quite nice. It had like the kind of stuff that you see in like a lot of these sort of games these days, where it has a timeline of who's going to attack when and what sort of attack's going to take effect. Yeah. And some of your attacks, take more than one turn to take effect to actually attack. And then there's various different power-ups and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a very silly game, as I think the title and the makeup of the game kind of alludes to. But it was really good humoured. I quite liked the gameplay. It was actually reasonably tactical in the battle. I did find a way to cheat one of the mini games, which I think was a little bug. But generally, I do think this is a solid little game to look out for. I think, it's a slightly crazy mix, and so that might appeal to a certain type of people. But I think it was really good fun. Really silly, and a decent game and one to look out for, basically. Okay, and that's in early access right now on Steam. Yeah, so you can go play that. It's by Appeline, and as I said, recommend go have a look, see if you fancy that as well. They did mention that they'd like to hopefully get it on other formats, and one of those being hopefully Switch in the future, maybe. But nothing definite on that front for now. But as you say, it's on Steam, so go have a look. Another one which I think is on Steam, maybe you can double check from me, Mr. Coleman. I think it might be in early access, or it might be out already. Not entirely sure. One that I've seen around for a bit and got a chance to play for the first time was Dungeon Golf. Yes. And this was the one I got to play on gamepad, so it's slightly less a fish out of water, although I also didn't read clear instructions while playing the game at one point as well, but still. Anyone that hasn't seen, this is a golf game that is also kind of got a dungeon crawling type element to it in a turn-based golfing fashion, basically. So as your the kind of base mode is just you are battling your way, and basically it's a slightly different setup to how it will be in the finished product. But the demo that they were showing had like a different character on a different hole, and there was various different holes that had different sets of conditions one by one. And it sounds like there could be like a group of 6 that would all normally have the same rules that would make up like the turn that you'd normally go through in the sort of main game, but the demo was slightly different. So I got to play with various different characters, all which had like different powers that you have to collect mana to build up. But generally, you're trying to steer your golf shots around an environment to in the base thing to hit enemies or treasure chests, possibly, to then hit enough of those to then open up the hole so that you can go for the hole and go for the exit of the hole, basically. Each time you strike an enemy or a treasure chest, if it's treasure chest you're going afterwards, it reduces each time you strike an enemy, it reduces the amount of shots you've taken. So you can get round in one shot, possibly, but you'd have to hit an enemy every time. The only slight risk reward of going near the enemies is unless you do certain power-ups that you can get around, like there's a ninja that made him more difficult to see so enemies couldn't attack him as well, as one of his power-ups. But generally, if you go into a sphere of influence of any of the enemies, they'll attack you and that will cost you a shot, basically. So you need to get be going from one enemy
Right.
to another without getting into the kind of danger zone around them. And yeah, that seemed to work really well. It seemed like it was going to be really fun. There's some nice combo possibilities and stuff like that. They had other modes on display where they had like a time attack mode where you just had to get through the hole as quickly as possible. The one thing that I think you could probably get used to a little bit more, but the kind of thing where you're pulling back on the analog stick to then choose the amount of power, and then you press a button when a kind of thing is going from side to side, and when you gets narrow, you want to press it so that you get an accurate shot, basically. And yeah, different characters had different levels of accuracy and different levels of power and strength. So yeah, it seemed like it would be quite replayable, and like the different characters would make quite a difference to when you're playing on different holes. So yeah, I can see this one being a bit of fun. I like a golf game, like we played Cursed to Golf that we talked about previously on the show. And yes, I definitely think this is one to keep an eye on and have a look. By a little indie developer called Ant Workshop as well, up in Edinburgh. So yeah, I want to keep an eye on again, I think.
Yeah, and that's another one in early access. And much like the other one, there's a demo available out now on Steam that you can download.
So have a little look at the demo, see what you think. But yeah, I like that. I enjoyed that.
Yes.
The next game is a game called Horror Stories Harvest Hunt. And this is by a little studio called Villainous Game Studio.
Triple H.
By the looks of things, they are quadruple H, no? Oh, no, Triple H, yes. The other one's an S.
Ah!
But yeah, there's a lot of H's in there anyway. But yeah, they are a little indie studio. It looks like they're working on 3 different horror games under the Horror Stories kind of anthology umbrella type thing, but I don't think any of them are out yet by the looks of what's going on. But the one they were showing off was Harvest Hunt, and yeah, I'm going to give this slightly the benefit of the doubt because I didn't have the greatest time with it, but there's elements of it I really liked, and I think the stuff that I suffered with here and there that made me not get through all of it was my deficiencies at WASD that I mentioned before, but also it's kind of a horror game where you need to like listen out for things and know what's going on in the level, and kind of it wasn't the best one for playing in the environment that I was playing it, especially when I suck at WASD, basically. So I gave a slight benefit of the doubt, but on the gameplay side of things. But it's based in a cursed village, and basically you had to go out, harvest all these stuff at night, and then you're kind of being chased by this creature, this monster, the Devourer, that you need to try and avoid. So it's very much a kind of sneaky thing, and you could hide in places and different stuff, but it's got like a roguelike element to it where you can earn equipment and stuff that will be then in the environment for the next night and stuff like that. So the better you do, the better it sort of continues and the easier it makes it for you. Because I sucked at WASDing and didn't get the best results, it probably made it a bit more difficult for me to get through the rest of it. But the one thing I really liked about it as well, and I spoke to the art director because I brought it up with someone else and they kind of introduced me to him. But the art style was really interesting and really good. It looked really impressive. It kind of suited the game style and setting that was there. And it's kind of, I asked him if it was cell shaded, and he said it kind of ended up looking like it's got a cell shaded element to it, but it wasn't the original art sort of influences that led to that being the case, basically. Like he had other influences and then introduced some of those elements and just liked the look of it, so it ended up with that look. But yeah, as I said, it's got a kind of cel-shaded nature to it, but it's really interesting looking. And yeah, like the general gameplay, as I said, it's got like a nice roguelike element to it. I can see this being popular with people that are good at WASD, and I can see it like actually being good with like streamers and stuff like that. So this is one that could, get a bit of buzz behind it and possibly do well. As I said, I'm not the best judge of this necessarily, and but I think the bits that I could see and appreciate from just, my limited capabilities with it, I kind of liked it and I thought it was interesting. So yeah, one to watch out for. The next game I'm going to talk about is one that I didn't play. But I didn't play because it was a co-op game. So I actually watched a couple of other pairs of people play it while I was chatting to the developers. But I just thought it was a really interesting concept. I really liked some of the art and the character design. And I think you'd quite like this, Mr. Coleman. So I thought I'd mention it particularly, but I also think
Yeah,
there's other
looks like
our
it.
listeners and stuff would be interested as well. So yeah, it's a game called Arm of Satan. It's on PC. It is a local co-op game where one of you is operating a kind of a bit more of a sort of traditional platformer with a bit of precise jumping and stuff like that going on. And then one of you is operating her demon arm that is taken over. Basically, there's a whole thing where the demon arm and the girl come into this collaboration together to kind of get themselves out of hell, basically. So yeah, it's interesting concept, but you've got the two of you working together on the same person, then you have to kind of time what you're doing so that like the one person's grabbing with the arm, and there's various different things you can do to get like a double jump between you and stuff like that. But it's very much you're going to have to be coordinating well at all times. And there was one point where the person in front of me, and I don't know them too embarrassed, but I thought this is quite funny. He was playing with, I think, his girlfriend from the sound of things. And then he got annoyed with playing with her a little bit and said, with respect type of thing. But he just said, is it all right we'll play with one of the devs just so I can get through this bit so that we can see a bit more of the game. so yeah, but it was just quite funny because they did talk about, and we kind of joked about it when I was chatting to them about this being a potential relationship ruiner, because I could see it being one of those games where
that's a lot of games.
Yeah, and some very innocent looking games, and this has obviously got a hellside influence to it on the artwork. But yeah, I just thought it had really strong character design, was an interesting concept, and yeah, one worth looking out for generally. The other thing, as I said, there was various other things I got to do throughout the day, and yeah, got to chat to some game developers and here and there. There's some other stuff that I will return to in future weeks. But as I said, the other side of things was the kind of the presentations and stuff going on, and there was a couple throughout the day that I really wanting to make it to, but then I got stuck playing lots of games, so I didn't get too much time. But the one I did make it to near the end of the day, which I was glad to do so, was really interesting presentation, actually. It was obviously a bit on the technical side because it was very much a game developer's talk, basically. But nevertheless, it was like really good humored, really interesting. It had some of their references from, what influenced them in the game. But it was a game that I talked about a bit on the show called Dead Island 2. I played through the game and they were showing off.
Never heard of it.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting in the game and really gave it a literal level of depth was the destruction of the zombies in that, and how detailed it was, and the acid melting and all this type of stuff. And so they gave a presentation called the Innards of F.L.E.H, which was the system that was kind of underpinning the technical side of the how the deformity appeared on screen and stuff, basically. In Dead Island 2's Gore system, Dissected. So it was two guys, and they were dressed in lab coats covered in blood, doing a presentation of just how they kind of put it together. And as I said, bit over my head on some of the technical aspects of exactly what was involved. But generally, they explained it that they used a series of widely used techniques, but kind of simplified and stacked a lot of different techniques on top of each other so that they created a larger effect for a minimal cost on, how much it took to compute that and run that when they had a lot of zombie models, basically. And yeah, it, as I said, from my sort of simplified understanding of things and what's saying, it was still a good human presentation, and kind of kept up with, like, they presented it well and said, this is how we did this, and this is the shader we used to create that, and just kind of the actual technical details lost on me. It's just interesting that from the look of things, they created a very realistic looking effect and very detailed looking effect by using a series of generally simple and widely known techniques, just applying some of them in different ways, and making an interesting combination which had a really good effect, basically. So as I said, that was the only presentation I really made it to throughout the day. But yeah, it was really interesting. It's for a game that I was really interested in, and an element of the game that really impressed me. So I kind of wanted to take a little peek and see sort of, how they achieved that. And kind of, the references they made are all things that you would kind of expect, like Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and stuff like that. But they had stuff from The Fly and a few other things that kind of and RoboCop was one that they had a couple of references to as well, in the destruction of flesh and how they wanted that to appear, and how they wanted things to be a bit wobbly. But yeah, like it was an interesting presentation and really well done. So yeah, that was good. I'm going to go back and try and see some of the presentations that I didn't make it to throughout the day. But overall, yeah, Develop is a really good thing. As I said, it's slightly better for... I think it's an interesting thing to cover as a journalist in our position, because there's some, big journalists that do cover it there. It's not like it's completely uncovered, but I don't think it's one that's particularly well covered by the enthusiast press. I think I was one of the only people on that side of things that were there, possibly. Most people were, professionals and actually good at this. So... look out for any of their coverage as well. Know what they're talking about and stuff like that. But yeah, I just think it's a good one to go to.
Handsome.
But also for any of our listeners, and
cheese.
I say this particularly because I know this has been the case in the past. I know we tend to get some listeners that are, game devs or people at university studying games and looking to possibly get into it. I think this is one of the best events throughout the year to go to. It can be expensive, so like I think you can get sponsorship through companies, and there's other ways and means of possibly getting there. But I don't know how it works for students and stuff. That's definitely something worth looking into. But it's a really good one for networking with potential employees, potential employers rather. And yeah, just as I said, there was other educators there and other people that can help you kind of get your foot in the door in the video game industry. And yeah, it's a really good event and one that I enjoy attending. So thank you very much for having me once again. I hadn't been for the last couple of years with all the lockdowns and everything, but it was nice to get back out there and get back to Brighton. And yeah, it was an enjoyable event once again. And I'll come back to a few things, both on VRB and in other bits in the future as well.
Yeah, I miss going to Brighton. I've not been to Brighton for many years, like 4, I think. I should go to Brighton soon. Isn't Brighton Pride soon? Let's all go to Pride.
Yeah.
I missed London Pride because I was working. Anyway, so Tim's been at Develop Brighton, and a lot of good games he's been covering while he's been there. I'm still playing AEW Fight Forever and Dave the Diver, as I spoke about on last week's show. So I will say that those games continue to be excellent. Dave the Diver most so. I have now got to a point with AEW Fight Forever where, much like the N64 games of old, it's now become second nature on how to play those games, and I can quite easily beat the AI no matter what kind of level I put it on. So now I need to start doing online matches, I think.
Okay.
Even though I'm not finished with the single player stuff. Yeah, but hey. It's quite funny because you're in the kind of story of that game, you're doing a retelling of the history of AEW, because they've only existed for like 7 years, I think. So it's its first year, and you're contacted to go into like their version of a Royal Rumble and then do go for the championship. And in reality, it's Chris Jericho who gets the first championship, but you can pick whoever. So I've got Orange Cassidy, who is a kind of comedic wrestler. He's very good. He's very talented. He's kind of a lucha libre style, but his kind of style is wearing double denim and aviators and being very lazy. And he wrestles with his hands in his pockets and kicks in slow motion because he's kind of too tired to kick. And it's quite funny because they've actually put the moves in the game where you can have a moment of putting your hands in your pockets, and then he does like a little slow motion kick. And just Google Orange Cassidy and watch some videos. Okay. It's very funny, but the audience will play along and react like it's the most devastating kick in the world, and they'll go oh, and then it'll take really a couple of steps back and then really slowly move to him and just sort of kick him in the small of the leg like it's a super kick to the chin, and they'll all go oh, and he's barely done anything. But yeah, if you ever get the chance, watch Orange Cassidy versus Pac. Which is a good one to see, which means you get to see a guy in double denim fight a Geordie. That's always good. But let's move over to the headlines because there have been some things happening this week. Indeed, yes, there have. We've got an update on the Menace, the co-creator of Sonic that we know as Yuji Naka, who we like to call Yuji Naks on this show for some reason. Because I don't know, Dan finds Japanese names funny, I think. You may remember he's been in some hot water recently.
Who, Dan?
Yuji Naks went off from... No, Yuji Nakamura. Nakamura.
Right, okay.
Naka. That's another wrestler. Yuji Naka, he left Sega. He went off to Square Enix and worked on the most amazing, it was called Balan Wonderland, which we covered on this show.
He's made some mistakes in the last few years. That's all we're going to say.
Yes, and while at Square Enix, he got involved in a bit of insider trading, it would seem, which is a very big deal, especially in Japan, and allegedly bought 10,000 shares in Square Enix when they were about to announce a new Dragon Quest, the Tact mobile game, thinking that was going to bolster the wealth of those shares, and he's now gone to court. I believe he's been fined 2 lots of 2 million yen, which is approximately $14,000. I don't know how much that is in pounds because I forgot to look it up beforehand. But he's also been given a suspended jail sentence of 4 years, I think it was. I'll have to double check that. No, 2.5 year suspended jail sentence.
Oh,
and yeah, it's kind of a downfall because when we say the co-creator of Sonic the Hedgehog, we know that if you've watched any kind of Sega or history of video games and Sonic comes up, they always mention that Sega Japan were working on this idea for Sonic the Hedgehog, a new mascot, and it was Sega America who kind of rejigged it and went, no, doesn't need a female girlfriend, doesn't need a guitar, doesn't need fangs, like changed the character enough and made the kind of Sonic that we know today. The big part of where Yuji Naka comes into this is he didn't just work on the character of Sonic, like the whole system of having the gameplay of that game being so fast, the engine that made that all possible, he worked on that. He created that. So, he's kind of a big deal. But yeah, Yuji Naka continues to go from strength to strength in the world of downfall.
I guess this doesn't have the same effect as some crimes does in Japan, where they have to withdraw everything that the person did creatively. Like, because if you're an actor and stuff, that's happened before, didn't it? It happened in a game where the game had to be withdrawn because it looked too much like an actor that had got into, I can't remember exactly what he did, but something that was a slightly more serious crime than this, not a financial one, basically.
Yeah, there was I think that was more a case. So there was a character in Judgment, which was I can't remember if it's a spin-off of Yakuza Like a Dragon type games, or if it's just the same team and style. But I believe there was an actor in there who, I can't even remember what he did now. We did cover it on the show, but they had to completely pull out his voice actor. But I think you're right, the character might have had a resemblance to the voice actor, and then they changed out the look of the character as well. That does sound right. I vaguely remember that. Anyway, on to happier news. Well, depending on your look of it. There is a Black Panther game in the works. We knew that there's a Captain America game in the works with Black Panther in there, which is meant to be the grandfather of T'Challa. Now there is going to be a new standalone Black Panther game that's been announced from EA in the game. And it's a single-player focused action adventure based on Black Panther. Now, where you might have a problem with this is because A, it's EA, and B, it's a case of they've announced it way ahead of a point where we're actually going to get this, because they've announced it and then started putting up advertisements for roles. So it's going to be a while before you see this. But I like more Marvel games, and this comes from one of the original leaders of Monolith Productions, who worked on the Shadow of Mordor game. And also there are veterans of Halo Infinite, God of War, and Call of Duty. So yeah, we've got some talent behind this one. I'm looking forward to that, even though we'll probably get it in 2028, most likely.
Well, and you criticize EA, but they're on a pretty good run of strong first, well reviewed and well regarded single player focused games as well. So it's not like they're not in a bad run for that at the moment, and in a fairly good place for the games they've released and how they've done. both commercially and in reviews.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There are certain studios, if you say the name of them because of troubled pasts or because of reputation alone, like an Activision, like an EA, like a Ubisoft, that if you say them, some people have negative connotations to throw behind that. And I was just giving warning that it is an EA game. But hey-ho.
It's in the game.
Are you excited for
the game.
another Marvel game, Tim? It's in the game. We've got a Captain America coming, like I said. We've got a Wolverine on the way. We've got a Spider-Man 2. More Marvel games good for you?
I mean, yes.
Like a bit of Black Panther?
Kind of, yeah. Like, we did have a few years where there was a sparse amount of games. We've generally had a reasonable run of Spider-Man games, and even though, the last Insomniac Spider-Man game hit a high point after a bit of a lull, that was fairly consistent. But we haven't really had games based on most of these other characters for a while. And I don't even remember, like, we've had Black Panther in games, but I don't think he's been the lead in a game that I remember.
He's been in Lego games.
Yeah.
He's been in those Marvel Capcom games.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, that's all I can think that he's been in. Maybe some of the other sort of Marvel fighting game variants, but yeah, we've not had... Oh, and of course, Marvel's Avengers, one of the greatest games ever made for the PlayStation 4 and 5. But yeah, we've not had, to the best of my knowledge, a standalone Black Panther game. So that would be cool.
Yeah.
Wonder if we're getting like a hack and slashy run around type thing that I'm expecting of all these games now. Right. And lastly, in the big headlines this week, I kind of read this wrong and was very confused. I thought Neil Druckmann was retiring from Naughty Dog, but it's not. It's actually Evan Wells, who is the co-president, or was the co-president of Naughty Dog for the past 25 years. He is now retiring, which now leaves Neil Druckmann as the head of Naughty Dog, the sole head of Naughty Dog. Quite a step up. And Neil Druckmann seems to be killing it.
I have to say, no disrespect to Evan Wells. I've been a big fan of your work over the years, I guess, but I'd never heard of you before in my life. You're obviously the silent partner in the partnership, possibly. But yeah, thank you very much, I guess. I didn't know you existed till now, though. Sorry, kind of, maybe. Or maybe that was intentional.
Wow.
I don't know.
Well, let me educate you, Tim,
yes,
because
educate me.
Of the 25 years that he's been the co-CEO, he's actually been with the company for 30 years, originally starting in 1998, worked on Crash Team Racing, also Jack and Daxter, before he became the co-president. So there you go. Yeah, that was following the departure of one of the original founders, Jason Rubin.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
See,
You've never played Crash Team Racing? You've played...
I think
you played the
Crash Team
remake.
Racing, yeah.
You played the remake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't good.
Surely you played Jack and Daxter at some point in your life.
I don't think I have, actually. I think it's just one that passed me by, because that was originally on PS2, no?
Yes, that's right. And then I think there was
PS2.
a remake on PS3 that we all got for PS Plus and Vita.
Yeah, I don't think it just passed me by. Ratchet and Clank, I've played here and there throughout the years.
Cool.
Not Jack and Daxter.
Okay. All right, a couple of little updates this week as well. We got new gameplay revealed for Rashid coming to Street Fighter 6, which we already knew about because all the characters got leaked from the Year 1 character pass just before the game came out, I believe. But yeah, Rashid's looking pretty good. He's going to be available on the 24th of July. You can buy him standalone for however much that's going to be, but the Year 1 character pass is £26.98 if you're interested.
Have you purchased
and that'll get you
Coleman?
access to... No.
No.
I don't know. I might wait till all the characters are out and then see if the pass goes down in price, because that happens a lot. But yes, that character one pass will get you Rashid. Yes. That character pass will get you Rashid, Aki, Ed, and Akuma. Might do it for Akuma.
Do it for Akuma.
Wait. Do it for Akuma, guys. And also, so we do talk about, we do like to talk about like the weirder kind of crossovers when it comes to Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
There is a new one coming for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and it's The Boys, which was announced by Black Noir, which is funny because he's a mute. Yeah. But you'll be able to play as, I don't know how this is going to work, if they're going to use powers or if they're going to use guns. I'm assuming they're guns because Call of Duty, but then it seems weird. But you'll have Anthony Starr as Homelander, you'll have Erin Moriarty as Starlight, and you'll have Black Noir, which I don't have the actor's name down, and I don't think they'll be using the actor's voice as he is a mute, as I said before. Those will be available on the 20th of July, and that will be available for a cost of 2,400 Call of Duty points, which includes weapon charms and loading screens and weapon stickers and emblems. So if you like your Call of Duty and you like your boys, there you go. That's a pretty cool cross. I mean, the characters look cool. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
It's no Godzilla Kong when they added those to Call of Duty. That was pretty awesome, even though you couldn't play as them. And it was actually a bit rubbish because they just fought on a big map and threw things at each other.
I mean, that's quite cool in itself.
Shot each other while they were there. And if you tried to go near them, then you just died. Because they'd have them out in the sea, each side of this island. And then if you got a helicopter or whatever and tried to get to them, it would just, the screen would fade to black and you died.
I mean, that's probably what would happen if you tried to get in between a fight between Godzilla and anything, and Godzilla was fighting, to be fair, Coleman.
No, Godzilla would go right to your face and he would look at you and growl a bit and then he would just punch the hell out of you.
Probably just eat you. Like
Samuel L. Jackson in that film. And Godzilla would roar at you and get you with atomic breath and not eat you because you're too small and you wouldn't make much of a dent in their appetite.
Oh.
Good. Tim, we've flown through the show today, so we better get the plugs out of the way and then we'll do some questions.
Oh.
Because we've got loads of questions we can get through this week.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds cool. All right. So, that is all the news we got time for. That was all the games we done played, even though we didn't really play much games. Tim went and demoed some games.
Yeah.
And, before we go, we'd like to say thank you for listening. And if you could go over to tpublic.com/store/BRB, that is our merch store. We have merch. We have T-shirts. We have masks, mugs, phone cases, stickers, anything that you could want with not just Big Red Barrel stuff, not just BRB UK stuff, but also, stuff from very talented artists that we have that look really cool. And that includes some excellent T-shirt design for Tabletop Tuesday, which is on a Tuesday, Tim.
It is indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone doesn't know, each and every Tuesday we do an event called Tabletop Tuesday at the Loading Bar in Stoke, Newington. With me being away yesterday and having done the event the night before, which was very good. We played Blood in the Clock Tower with a large group of people and it was good fun. But with me having been busy the last couple of days, haven't actually finalized something that I'm doing for next week. Hopefully we might have to juggle some things around, but hopefully by the time you read this, there might be some more information on the top left-hand corner of bigredbarrel.com or on our meetup group. Search meetup.com and search for Tabletop Tuesday. I'll join the other 2,000 members that we have there. It was a really good week last week. There was quite a few people as well, so it'll be nice to have another crowd this week as well. So come and join us. This week we will be having a feature game, and if you play that feature game that evening, you have a chance of winning a copy of the game at the end of the evening. So come along, play a game, possibly win it just by being there. Join us at the Loading Bar in Stoke Newington.
Okay. Yes, Tabletop Tuesday, Loading Bar, Stoke Newington. Get there and play some cool games and meet some cool people and possibly win games. That's fun. I like winning stuff. Can I win a game?
No.
Stuff you then. I'm not going. I'm going to go to, what do we call it? Tiddlywinks Wednesday in the McDonald's over the road from Tabletop Tuesday. Unless the bouncer's there because he scares me.
The bouncer will scare you.
Kind of McDonald's has a bouncer. Yeah, most bouncers do. Thank you for listening. If you have been listening, you've not been paying attention, just using this as white noise for you to fall asleep to. But if you have been paying attention, you may want to get in contact with the show, and you can do so via our comment section on bigredbarrel.com. Also on bigredbarrel.com, we have a Discord link available. We have a Facebook and a Twitter at Big Red Barrel. And we also have a YouTube called Big Red Barrel TV, and also the brand new Big Red Barrel Threads account. You can get in contact with us there. I'll be putting all our posts up on there as well. And yes, as well as in the show notes of each and every episode, you can find all links to the social media stuff that we talk about. But any of the, say we do presentations, we talk about Gamescom or something, or a Nintendo Direct. I always put the links in for the things that we've been talking about that way as well. I think you actually get more links if you're on Apple because you get links to all the article sources and things that we talk about. Yeah, with all the chapters. I don't know how that works. I don't have an iPhone, so but apparently I should get one. Anywho, this has been BRB UK, and before we go, you can take those links, you can get in contact with us, and if you want to get involved with the show, you might want to ask us a question. You might want to say it loud, you might want to say it proud, you might want to say, I have a question, much like these fine people have. We'll go in order, in fact. We'll go with Richard Kirk, who asks, which video game protagonist would make the best guest on BRB UK and make Tim, and then he's asking if we can make Tim to pretend that be that person.
It's not going to happen. Said no peer pressure impressions here. So no.
I would quite like Kratos. But I want specifically PS2 era Kratos, where he's just screaming,
really
at
angry,
Athena
screaming
and Zeus
everything,
and Ares.
Yeah.
So if you could do that next week, and also if you could also do the cosplay as well, just paint yourself grey with a big red stripe down your face, and shave your head bald as well. That'd be good.
Okay.
Whole thing.
Yep. All right. No probs.
Cool.
I might just wear a little hoodie
who
that
are you
looks like
picking?
God of War, because I've got one in the cupboard.
Ah.
There you go. Yeah. I guess Mario. Like, if we're gonna have like a draw to the podcast, that would be a good guest. And I don't mean, Charles Martinet. Yeah. No disrespect to him, but actual Mario on the show.
What, Captain Lou Albano?
No, Bob Hoskins.
Do the Mario. Both are dead.
Yes.
Bit of a problem, really.
Well, that's why it's a dream, Coleman. Dreams can come true, and also dreams can just not come true, but things that we dream, apparently.
What about Chris Pratt? Could we get Chris Pratt dressed as Mario? He seems quite entertaining.
Yeah, I guess. I don't think he plays games, though, Coleman.
Well, he could do that Star-Lord dance-off dance that he does in... which you watch the first time you see Guardians of the Galaxy there, that's quite cool. And then you watch like old interviews and things of him. And he's been doing that for years, that same dance move. It's like it's one thing he does. Then next we went down a bit of a Chris Pratt rabbit hole and learned all this stuff. Kev, our good friend Kev from VRB, over on where podcasts are available, the VR podcast starring Tim and Kev. He wants to know if we've unironically preloaded Exo Primal on Game Pass. No, because I haven't switched on my Xbox in about 3 months. Whoops. And I don't have Game Pass.
Yeah, mine's not quite 3 months, but it's probably a while. But yeah, might pick it up at some stage. I do like the idea of shooting dinosaurs with mechs. Like, you can't get that wrong, can you? Like, I just want to see like how silly that was. It kind of gives me a lot of like. I didn't love the demo, but there's enough there to possibly draw me in, so I should probably download it at some point. Well remembered, Kev. He just wants people to play with, I think, though. Yeah, there is probably that. Maybe I'll sign up for a month. I mean, I've got to sign up soon anyway, because the Sea of Thieves expansion is going to be out soon, and I want to be playing that. No, actually, no, I don't have to, because I picked it up in the Steam sale, so I can play it on Steam Deck. Okay.
Yeah. Now I can play Sea of Thieves at work. In my lunch break.
Okay.
State that. Slacking. All right. Ricky Goji, who I believe is Rick, the man they call Rick, he says, there are lots of games that are considered poo by the masses. I've changed that for sensory. But guilty pleasures by the few. For example, I know Army of Two is poop, but I still love it. What games do you enjoy that the majority think are rubbish? Coleman can't say Avengers.
I mean... The famous one with me is Rise.
I only like good games.
I quite liked Order 1886 as well, even though people didn't really like that. It was famously derided, but I kind of like that. So, like, it's okay to love an imperfect game or person or anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Have passion.
Imperfect person. Yeah. Is that your pitch to your missus?
Yeah.
It's okay to love an imperfect person. I don't know. I only like good games, so I really don't. I don't think I've got anything that's a guilty pleasure. Have you heard of this one called Avengers? Everyone panned it. Joe, no, I know what it is.
What?
I know what it is. I know what it is.
Okay.
I know what it is. I know what it is. Days Gone.
Oh, right, yes, yeah.
Days Gone.
You really liked that when the rest of the world sort of laughs at it a bit.
Zombie, open world motorbike zombie game that got panned by a lot of critics, especially when it came out, because they said, hey, this plays like an old PS2 game and it's so dated with the mechanics and all this kind of stuff. And then, which I found very odd, because I think it was IGN I was listening to, and there was like 3 people, they'd all played the game, they were slating it, and then they go, how long have you been playing? He goes, about 127 hours. How is it that bad? How are you still playing it? You're not even meant to be reviewing it. You're just doing it for the podcast.
And I think we both quite liked Evolve, even though that got a bit of a kick in as well, no?
I really liked Evolve, and it was a shame what they did to that game. And it was a shame that not enough people picked it up, because you couldn't, or if they did, they weren't playing it. That game really needed friends to play with and not strangers that didn't have headphones, because that game was all about communication to succeed, unfortunately.
Also,
really
Brink. Like, it was one that we played at an EGX one year, and a lot of us played it that were on BRB, and then we kind of raved about it because it had probably the best level from the game in reflection, and I think it was almost like a bit ahead of its time. It was kind of Overwatch before Overwatch.
Yeah.
And even had some of the modes that were similar to it, but yeah, most people didn't like it, and I thought it was decent.
That came out before I joined. I think that might have still been SG days, actually, before BRB.
Okay, might be.
But I remember listening to...
Oh, no, it was.
Yeah, I remember listening to this podcast. Yeah. I think it was you, Brady, and Dan that had played the game. We're talking about it, absolutely hyping it up, raving about it. And I was back in Portsmouth listening to the show, and went, Brink, got to keep an eye out for Brink. And then it came out, and I think loads of people picked it up based on the hype and got rid of it very quickly. And to get to work, I had to walk past the CEX, and one day I walked past and there was just a shelf of Brink. Just the entire front display was Brink, and it had been reduced, and it had been out a week, and they were going for about £2.70. Yeah, that game flopped hard when it came out. I think it was network issues, wasn't it? Just basically unplayable.
Yeah, I don't think it helped, but yeah, it had some problems. And then Haze everyone hated, and I didn't think that was as bad as everyone made out. Also, Homefront got panned, and I quite like. I don't think it was the world's best game, but I liked it even though it wasn't great.
Was that the PS4 one?
Yeah, Homefront, the Revolution, I think. Like, presentation-wise and stuff like that was brilliant in places, like, really good. And it had some really good elements to it. It kind of struggled in the world of open world games that clearly had a bigger budget and a bigger way of finishing things, I think, basically. But I think it had some really good elements to it and was fun. But,
I liked the first Homefront game, particularly when that PR company tried to release 99 red balloons off a harbour, and accidentally they all went into the sea, and they got fined by environmental groups because they could kill a load of fish and stuff. That was a fun time. One day we need to do a feature on terrible PR company blunders from video games, because I was talking about this at work a little while ago, and the Dante's Inferno one I was talking about, I was like, I really need to do a feature on PR stuff, because there's some embarrassly bad ones on
various busts of busts over the years.
Name Your Child Turok, that was a good one.
And there's some tattoo things and stuff gas. Like that.
Yeah. Spiky Chris, he asks, what game have you gone back to after a long time and realized it just doesn't hold up anymore?
GoldenEye.
Yeah, that's quite a fair one. I remember when I started collecting retro consoles and got a GoldenEye and went, oh, this plays horribly.
Also, unfortunately, the original Halo, as much as I love it.
Yeah. I would say there are a lot of games for me that don't hold up from the last generation, not because of the game itself, but because of, as we've explained many times, I've adapted to 60 frames a second, and now when I go back to 30, and a lot of games don't actually play at 30 that are meant to play at 30, they'll be more like 25, 27. That lower frame rate triggers my travel sickness. So when I go back to playing a game that I really liked on PS4 and it hasn't had a next generation patch update thing, I load it up on the PS5 and go, I can't play this. So a lot of that. Also, Treasure Island on the Commodore Plus 4. I spent ages trying to get it running and got it running, but I just cannot work. I mean, it's a very simplistic game, but it's a big part of my childhood. And when I try to play it, it runs at like 20 times the speed that it's meant to. It's really hard to play.
I don't know about you as well, but once you've played through a game where it's been remade and remade well, like a good proper remake of it, it's really hard to go back to the original game because you kind of it fudges your memory even more than playing the original game, and it's hard to go back to an original after you've really enjoyed a remake, I think. Just sort of more modern phenomenon.
Yeah, the Blue Point of Shadow of the Colossus is a really good example of that, because Shadow of the Colossus came out on PS2. They did a HD remake for PS3, which they kind of just went, okay, so output as PS3, and that was what they did. And I went, yes, Shadows of the Colossus. Oh, I don't remember this controlling so badly, and it does control quite badly. And now they've remade it. Blue Point remade it on the PS4, and it plays so well, so much better, that it kind of does ruin the original game by playing the newer one.
Yes.
Even though there's enough differences to kind of separate the two, which is weird. Ed, the man they call Ed, he said, I just saw Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1.
I want to see that at some point.
And he was reminded that they haven't tried to make a Mission Impossible game since the one on N64.
It's impossible,
which also
that's
came
why.
on PlayStation. Not a lot of people know that, because it came out like a year or two later. With this in mind, the fact that all Bond games devolve into mindless shooters and Metal Gear games are unexplainable to a layman and unappealing to anyone who isn't bisexual. Okay.
Ed, you should have read Ed's question before.
No, I did, because I found the end bit quite funny.
Okay.
Do you truly think there could be a true spy game that could capture the essence of being a movie spy? In brackets, he's not called Vamp because he's a vampire. He's called Vamp because he's bisexual, referring to Metal Gear Solid 2 and 4.
Right.
Vamp, anyway. Yes, I would say, which is, the two lead into very well. I would say Hitman, even though it's a Hitman game, does give you the feeling of being like a super spy, depending on how you play that game. But because of that, it's very cool that IO Interactive are making the next Bond game.
Oh, yeah.
So that could be the one we've been waiting for. What say you, Tim?
Duck.
For the video.
For the audio
For
listeners.
the viewers of our YouTube show. For the audio listeners, Tim just picked up a rubber duck that looks like Agent 47 that Tim has been annoying me with before we started recording the show. Very good. I just found my little chibi Agent 47 that we picked up at Eurogamer Expo that one year. And it's been packed away for so long. His little guns that he's holding have been bent round his head. They've just warped. Yeah. I need to see if I can boil them and straighten them out, because I think it's acrylic, so should have plastic
Can't go
memory.
around boiling Hitman.
Science, Tim. No, just the guns. If you got plastic that's warped, a lot of the times you can boil it and it will just go back into all right. Heat source, all that kind of stuff.
Just put a barcode
Did
on the back
you have
of
an
your
answer
heat.
for Ed's one, or did you just want to play or you just want to play with ducks?
Just playing with ducks.
Because I'll go get my ducks.
To be fair, I kind of lost the purpose of his question. Like, okay. Which one? Spy game. Okay. There's been good like VR series that we've talked about before on the show, that I Expect You to Die, which is a good kind of Bond reference, and I kind of quite like that. Kind of captures some of the essence of that for me. But yeah, like you say, Hitman's not a bad shout for being a deadly spy. There's nothing that really kind of like, there was like Splinter Cell, and what's the other one that just came to place? Siphon Filter, that used to be kind of, your modern day spy with gadgets type thing. But there doesn't, like, Splinter Cell's gone back into hibernation, and there isn't really a game of that ilk and that caliber. It's weird that there hasn't been more Mission Impossible games. Obviously, it's a long-running TV series, originally a TV series, but then a long-running movie series, which has been successful for a number of years now. I guess it was kind of a victim of the time when everyone stopped making movie games and just no one's thought to pick up the license. Although thinking about it, there's a lot of Tom Cruise films that don't have video game adaptations. So I wonder if it's something that he's just not particularly keen on. I can't think of many. I don't think there was a Minority Report, for instance. I don't remember the one being for Edge of Tomorrow. Like, there's quite a few properties that you could see them making a game of, and it hasn't been the case. So
Edge of Tomorrow was basically a video game movie.
Well, yeah. It's the ultimate roguelike. Or, roguelike.
I'm trying to think. Surely I've played a Tom Cruise game other than that one game.
Yeah, like, name them, because I can't think of many from his various different properties over the
Collateral, the video game.
would lend themselves to them. Like, well, some there isn't, but, quite a few of his films do. But, yeah. There's a dearth of
don't
Tom
you remember the
Cruise-related
Jerry
video
Maguire
games.
point and click game?
No Last Samurai.
Don't you remember Cocktail, the cocktail game, where you'd have to mix cocktail? I've never seen Cocktail. I just know he's a cocktail bartender guy.
That's pretty much it.
Mixologist.
No Rain Man game where you have to count cards in a casino.
Uh-oh. Definitely six. Definitely six. That'd be amazing. Voice activated to it as well. So you got to do the really quite offensive impression. Yeah, I would say, getting off the Tom Cruise tangent back onto the spy games, I would also say the way I play Cyberpunk 2077, I feel like a super secret spy sometimes because I'm very stealthy and use a lot of hacking gadgets and stuff in that. Yeah.
Speaking of which, Gex is making a comeback as well, so that's where maybe you can get your spy kicks in future years.
I swear this has only happened because of one stupid running joke from the Scott the Woz YouTube show, where there's one character who's obsessed with Gex, and then when they finally get him to play Gex, he's like, what the hell is this?
I mean, we've already had Zool revived.
Classic
so
Gex.
Gex was next.
Check out Scott the Woz if you haven't. It's a pretty good show. Okay. Let's end it there. We went through all the questions.
Yeah.
That never happens because we had time to eat, and now you've eaten it. We are full, sufficiently filled up, our bellies full with questions. Thank you very much for leaving those. We will get more for next week, hopefully. I will say as well as leaving us questions, you can leave us podcast reviews. You can do it on any of those platforms that allow you to do reviews, such as Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Podcast Addict or other things as well. And a lot of the times, if you're listening on your phone, then you can actually get the option to leave a review in the app that you're listening to as well. So check out. You might be able to leave us a review. That feeds to us. We've got a little RSS feed reader type thing, sends it over. That produces a nice little report. I get to put it in the agenda. We get to read it. I checked today. We've not had a review in like 2 years.
Aww.
So I'd like some reviews, please.
Give
That'd be
Coleman a
quite
review.
nice. We've gone right down the runs.
Aww.
Yeah, we've gone right down the runs
get
of the
reviews all
podcast
the
highway.
time.
We've had 5-star reviews on Spotify, but they're not written reviews. They're literally click a star rating.
Well, that's nice as well.
It's nice, but I can't go, hey, thanks to
Blah, blah, blah for the blah, blah,
Devil
blah.
Boner 6969 for all the lots of love and support that you've given us.
Ooh,
Those are the usual names of people that we get.
speaking in codes, there's one other thing that I forgot to put on the agenda, but I would like to mention quickly before we escape. There's one thing that I had actually kept an eye on, and I saw at Develop Safe in Our World, who we've mentioned before in our Gaming for Good sections. They are doing a thing called Sidekick. It's a video games mental health journal. I kind of got to have a look at one that they had at the show, kind of thumbed through it a little bit, and it's something designed to help you through kind of mental health difficulties and just keeping track of your mental health in general. Probably a good thing for a lot of game developers, either being pressured on by a big company or you're putting yourself under pressure as an indie game developer. It might be a handy thing to keep track of and actually make sure that you're looking after yourself as well as making great games. But yeah, there's a code that they had for Develop, and I got permission to give it out on the show so that people can develop. If you're interested in picking up a copy of the book, you can get yourself 10% off. So the code is Develop, spelled, just clarify it to make absolutely sure, but Develop 10 is the code overall, but it's spelled out DEVELOP 10, no gaps. And that should get you 10% off Sidekick. So check out Safe in Our World's website at and the website for it in particular is journal.safeinourworld.org. So yeah, go and check them out, and if that's something of interest to you, then you can get yourself 10% off and pick up a copy.
Cool. For how long?
I believe that code is active for the next week. I think it's till maybe a week or so. So 21st of the 7th, I believe the code runs out. So as long as you get the code in before then you should be good.
Cool. I'll stick that in the show notes. We should probably look into that because we are all insane on this show. It is a big problem. My life is in tatters. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that.
I mean, I literally took the first day off I've had in months and got up at 2 hours earlier than I normally do to go to work, to go to Brighton and report on Develop. So, yeah, maybe I should get myself a diary too. Take better care of myself.
Yeah, I've worked 15 days straight. Right. This has been BRB UK, episode 550. Thank you very much for listening. Once again, if you have been listening, you might just put this on to entertain your pets while you're out of the house so they think that there are people there.
It makes sure that...
Like I used to do with my cats.
Scare burglars away. We have many uses.
Yeah. That too. Lights on timers, that kind of thing. Boo!
Oh.
Go away from the house. Just in case.
Get out.
You know.
I can see you.
And if you do have a dog listening to your podcast, good boy. He's a good boy.
Oh, who's a good boy?
Yeah. He wants a biscuit. All right. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, dear listeners, I have been Coleman.
I might have been Tim.
Burglars trying to get scared off from your podcast. That's pretty damn chaotic if you ask me. Dan hopefully will be back next week, but we'll have to see. He's a very busy man, what with stealing phones and smashing up underwater vehicles. So sabotaging underwater vehicles. Till next time, dear listeners, goodbye.
You and your ears are quite welcome for the podcasting goodness that you just heard. Why not roll on over to BigRedBarrel.com for more podcasts, news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarrel.com.
Then I think that's another 20 quid. And you get to adorn yourself with Max Verstappen merch, which I personally wouldn't do if you paid me, let alone me pay someone else to do it. So there we go. F1 23. Cars go vroom.